Okay, I'm going to do something really weird here. I am going live and recording at the same time. I've got video recording on my phone for YouTube on one side and Facebook Live on the other side. So this is going to be super weird right now. I just felt like making a general catch-up video before I went to recording some other videos today. I've been out for like a week. I've had a week-long intestinal bug. I think I'm in the clear now. I'm waiting a little longer before I say it's good. And, you know, I'm sure most of us are familiar with like an idea. Like we get some kind of creative seed idea that just grabs a hold of us and just doesn't let go for a while. So I mentioned a little while ago that I was taking a second pass at making a particular RPG setting or RPG for an existing IP that doesn't have an RPG. And so that idea has just been nothing yet. Shake that idea loose.
Obviously when I was in the throes of being sick, I didn't really work on anything. So for a few days there, I didn't do anything. But that's been going. I'm going to call it an NE RPG, just to keep just give it kind of a code name while I'm working on it. I don't plan on publishing it or anything like that. I don't plan on violating any kind of, copyright, IP infringement or anything like that. That's not a problem. I'm just kind of keeping it under wraps while I play with it for a while. If it goes well, I'll share it around and I'll talk about my success and how I was working on it. Or maybe I've already mentioned it in another video and I've forgotten that. So that's what's been grabbing my attention really hardcore. I did run that introductory RPG session for some of the folks that work with Ribbit. They had a really good time. Like some of them went and sought out more RPG avenues just because of that. But what's interesting about that is I made it. My wife and I sat down together and we made a Dragon Age session, and it was going against a kind of tough enemy. So we went ahead and like brought them up higher level, right? Like we pre-gened the characters to level 9 in Dragon Age, and it was interesting. An interesting experience about that was that I felt like the characters, aside from their specialities, their specializations, really started becoming very not one note, but that they were all the same note. So I'm wondering if that's something specific to the Dragon Age RPG, because it just doesn't have enough skills. It doesn't have, well, that's coming from a role master perspective, right? That's what has informed most of my viewpoints of things, right? There's not a lot of special abilities. There's just skills. So even if you look at D&D, and granted the last edition that I got closer to was 3rd, there aren't a whole lot of skills. Most of your differentiation came from class abilities. Right, but I would have like a fighter a warrior type person who's doing sword and board, and one that was doing two-handed, and they both ended up, with the specializations, not the specializations, but the skills, the talents, if you use the Dragon Age words, that the other one had, because they were running out of things to pick. Maybe that's also just a weakness of making a pre-gen, right, where you don't have that long campaign play history informing how you develop the character. So anyways, I thought that was interesting that the characters were kind of feeling very, very similar. again, a set for their specializations. And I chose to have one not take a specialization because it didn't fit the character concept to be, a Templar or a Crusader or the Glowing Angel Defender type or any of those others. None of them made sense with the character concept that I had in my head. So I just didn't, I didn't pick a specialization, which again, gave them even less to make them different. So that was kind of an interesting thing with Dragon Age. I'd like to see how that plays out at, when you do a long campaign. I'll spin off of that idea to say, I'm really struggling to come up with story ideas in settings that aren't mine. I'm really struggling to do, like, the more interesting that I know, the more interesting that the lore is, and the more in depth some of the lore is, the harder I'm having the more I'm having a hard time. Redundant sentence, sorry. Coming up with stories. I've never felt this before. I've never faced this before, probably because I've been playing in my own setting for so long. But it just feels so, I feel so hamstrung. I feel like something is missing. And maybe it's that, not really hamstrung, but a tendon that hasn't been stretched, out, a muscle that hasn't been used, of creating stories inside an existing setting. And if I go forward with this, which I totally plan on going forward with GMing at that store for customers, I'm gonna want to come up with a bunch of different, story ideas for a bunch of different systems that I'll run to give them tons of experience all over. As a bookstore, I'm looking for, well, they don't carry this, maybe they don't carry this RPG, but this RPG is tied into this lore. Like, let's say I was to run Rollmaster, right? Maybe they can't get Rollmaster stuff. I'm positive of it, right? Like, I'm not sure anything is actually in production print anymore. But ICE used to be connected to Middle Earth. It's a bookstore. I could easily tie that to some Middle Earth stuff, even if I'm not running a Middle Earth setting. There are other books where, maybe I run Shadowrun. I don't know, just as an example. Maybe I run Shadowrun. I don't have Shadowrun, but maybe I run Shadowrun. They don't carry the Shadowrun RPG, but if they can get a hold of some of the Shadowrun-based novels, like if that's in their order catalog, right, then I can link these things together. So I'm thinking about those sorts of things, and I'm trying not to make it single. I'm not trying to do single system stuff. I'm trying to really branch out and give lots of exposure all over the spectrum. Other than that, like, yeah, that's also partly why I haven't made another video in my world setting series, which is what I'm going to do right after this, just because I've been totally focused. I've just been going ham on RPG system creation, and I really need to start thinking some more about what are going to be some of the sessions I'm going to run as well, and start getting them prepared. And like I asked Ribbit this morning when I was dropping off for work, come future time, when I don't, I do this on a weekly basis or something like that, and I don't know who's going to show up, and I don't know what systems they're going to have experience with, or what preferences they're going to have, or which combinations of players I'm going to have. I'm not really going to necessarily be able to run campaigns as easily. Do I bring all of my systems, all of my maps, all of my, do I start putting in all the books? How do I move that around? How do I create, like I'm speaking logistics now, right? Like, how do I do something so that I can get in and out easily and dry, right? We live on the coast here. We get a decent amount of rain. Sometimes it's really hard rain. It's not a little light rain, and I don't want any of my books getting wet. So what do I do? What do I do for those? And how do I move that around? Do I just see who's present and then go back to the car and get stuff? I don't know. Do I just create essentially DM screens or other, like, oh, I just really need these pages to run the game, and bring pre-gens and other character sheets and story materials and maps? That would be pretty. I think that would be pretty doable. Like that'd be probably pretty easy to move around. Yeah. So that's what's going on. Been sick. Been going ham on this NE RPG that I want to create for an existing IP that doesn't have its own RPG. And trying to think about storylines and which systems I'm going to run. Essentially, like all my systems are up. I'll potentially run any and all of my systems, right? So Rollmaster stuff is up. Maybe I can finally get going on finishing that four session arc that tells a piece of the history of my world. Maybe I'll make some Rifts stuff. I do have some Rifts book. I'm not. What's the name for that? What is the slang word for people who are just always getting more and more powerful? I can't remember that word. But I'm not into that for Rifts. Like I just really like the setting and I like the writing. I like some of the ideas. Even the later ones that might have been, powermongery kind of stuff. I can't remember the word I'm looking for. But I don't have a lot of the books, and I don't intend to own many more, if ever any. I think I've actually sold some already. So I have a fairly small focus on what I would like to do, what I could be interested in doing in a Rift type setting. Like simply a vampire setting, right? Like, not a Vampire the Masquerade setting, right? But like something in the South, something in Texas, or around that area, and just have a vampire-based storyline or something like that. Something in Wormwood. I thought that was a really interesting. I think that was the first dimension book or the second dimension book. I really thought that was a very interesting dimension, and setting and just storyline, like just really classic good versus evil. So all of my stuff's available, and I feel like I'll finally get to maybe have some more experience with Dragon Age. Trying to get Earth Dawn to the table and finally get Riddle of Steel to the table. I'm not really sure how good Riddle of Steel is going to be for that sort of situation with how easily characters can die. But it'll be a learning experience. I'll probably test it out with friends and coworkers first before bringing it to bear on random customers. So I think my video was good on Facebook. I think when I started that up again, I found the right mic. And for those who are watching my channel, you can look for a homebrew setting video soon. I'm going to get into recording that in just a little bit. So I see y'all later. And I can't keep up with y'all's Facebook videos. I mean, I'm so far behind. I'm so far behind on both YouTube and Facebook, and I listen to a lot of YouTube's actually where I get a lot of my news and politics. So like those are like 20 minutes, sometimes 45-minute or an hour-long videos. So I can't, like, those take up a lot of time, and I don't get to just like get to that next 6 to 15-minute long RPG video. Those things are really spread apart. But anyways, I like listening to your guys' comments, I like reading your comments. I like listening to your videos. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good content. Looking forward to this year's RPG a day. Though I hope it's hard to come up with new questions. No criticism. It's hard to come up with new questions. Maybe this year's format could just be different, or approach is different. I don't know. I have no idea, and I'm not asking to be in charge of that by any means. If it's the same old thing, good. It's the same old thing. Maybe some of our answers will have changed as the year's experiences have gone by. But anyways, just coming to that. I'm looking forward to that again and listen to you guys' stuff. And hope I find more time to catch up with you guys and to expand my library of people that I listen to. All right. Check you guys later.